Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Since it's finals week up here in Boston, I thought that it would be a good time to do a Q&A video to answer any and all of your questions. So thank you guys so much for sending in your questions either through Reddit, Twitter, or through the YouTube community page. If you want me to do more Q&A videos, let me know in the comments, and if you have other questions that I can either answer in the comments or answer in another Q&A video, definitely let me know. Okay. On with the questions. We'll start off with the YouTube questions. What first got you into AI? Obviously, I think I was growing up during a time when it became like a really big popular thing and a really big potential career path. And so I think that that was definitely helpful in like making sure that it was on my radar. It was something I knew about. I got into it when I was assigned a project for a summer research program at Stanford. And I was interested in doing something computational, but I had no background in AI. And the project that I was assigned was an AI project. And so they basically were like, yeah, you should learn that in the 2 weeks that you have between now and starting the project. And I did. And I think that that summer really kind of gave me a foundation in like applied machine learning, kind of a crash course in what I could do with it and whether or not I was interested in it. And I definitely was, not necessarily for the application that I was working with, but it was something that I knew I wanted to incorporate into whatever I did in the future. Next question. Are there any other AI content creators that you'd like to collaborate with? This is actually a really interesting question that I guess I haven't thought about that much, mostly because aside from Jabril's, Siraj Raval, I'm not aware of a ton of other AI-focused content creators. Like, there's a lot of people who do, like, coding, but not necessarily AI specifically. So I think that, you know, a collab with Jabril's would be cool. He does some really interesting projects that I think are a lot of fun. I explain the AI, he does the project, or we do the project together or whatever. I think we're both actually going to be in EduCon in July, so maybe that'll become a thing. Who knows? As for Siraj Raval, I think his videos are very interesting from the perspective of, like, a viewer and a user of YouTube. They're not necessarily something that I would watch. They tend to get very, very technical. And so I could see kind of, I guess, doing a similar collab where like he would develop code and I would kind of talk about the ramifications of it and like why you should care. But he also has a very like established business, and I'm not sure that there'd be much overlap in that sense for collaborations. But if there are other people that you want to see me collab with, AI focused people or otherwise, definitely let me know in the comments. Okay, next question. Do you think self-learning is the biggest threat to humans in terms of AI? So I guess the answer would be yes, if I'd seen evidence of self-learning. Self-learning, I'm interpreting in this context as AI's ability to generalize past what it was trained to do and apply that knowledge to other topics. And we've seen some limited examples of this, but like not enough where I think that I'm really concerned about it at the moment. If we did start to see that, then yeah, that would be a concern because it would be really, really hard to predict where it would go and what it would do. But I'd say the biggest threat to humans in terms of AI is really just other humans, making sure that we're not developing, as I've said in many, many videos, making sure that we're not developing models that lead to things like surveillance states where no one has privacy anymore. And I think that that's probably my bigger concern right now. If you could have any AI, which is the most useless but fun that you would like to have? Oh, that's hard. There's a lot of very useless AI. Some undergrads at MIT made an AI that like generates different pizzas with different topics and stuff, and then they got a local pizza place to make those pizzas. So honestly, it would probably be that, because like maybe not specifically for pizza, but like for food in general, because like I love food and pizza, and that just seems like it would be a lot of fun. Don't know if I made it in time or if you can answer this, but how much international cooperation is there in the field of AI? Basically, will the Huawei controversy affect anything? So Marcus Brownlee has a pretty good video that can catch you up on what's going on with the Huawei controversy. In short, the trade war that the US and China have been in for the last couple years has resulted in an escalation where essentially the US banned all business agreements with Huawei out of concerns that US companies and US developers would use Huawei services, and then China would use that network in order to spy on the US. And so because of this ban, Google actually had to cut off all ties with Huawei, which means that Huawei can't use the Android platform anymore. And so that, given that they're like one of the fastest growing cell phone companies right now, is really causing them to take a hit in terms of their business. They're also, in terms of AI specifically, I would say that there's international cooperation, just not between the US and China. At some point I'm gonna have to do a video on this because it's becoming more of a thing, but there is a sense that there will be an arms race of some sort between, or that we're already in one, between the US and China in terms of AI development. I would say that we definitely don't have like a collaborative relationship with China when it comes to AI. What would you recommend for junior high students who are interested in AI but don't necessarily have computer science courses at their schools? Internet. If you have access to a computer but maybe not access to the computer science courses at school, I would say that there's a ton of online classes that you can take that are all free. Coursera has a set of classes. There's everydAI, which does kind of a crash course in deep learning. I think that there's a ton of online stuff that you can do. Okay, so now we're going to switch to the Reddit questions. What are the most common AI algorithms and what are they good at? So I guess the most common AI algorithms are things like linear regressors and linear classifiers, which just figure out how to map a formula that divides or links your data. I talked about this in the AI 101 series, and they're pretty straightforward, but they're very good at just saying, here's a group of data, how do I predict based on this one variable what the outcome of this data will be? So I would say that that's probably the most common one. The next most common one would be things like neural networks, which kind of encompasses a whole range of algorithms, but things that are used for targeted advertising, newsfeed sorting, stuff like that. In general, they're good at predicting outcomes based on data. And so obviously that can be applied to a lot of different things. What's the hardest part of working with AI? And on a more personal note, what was the hardest part about going to an Ivy League school? Okay, so the hardest part about working with AI is I think the hardest part of working with coding, which is that like 90% of it is like Googling your error messages and being very frustrated as to why your code isn't working. I think that there's certainly like intellectual challenges in terms of staying up to date with the literature, figuring out what's going on, learning about new model architectures. But a lot of the day-to-day frustration is like thinking you got it right and then running your code and it like totally doesn't work and you have no idea why. For the second question, so for those who haven't watched my tissue engineering to AI video, I did my undergrad at Cornell and I'm currently at Harvard and MIT for my PhD. I don't know if I can think of a hardest thing about going to an Ivy League school. I'll be upfront and say that I came from a fairly privileged background. One of my parents went to Cornell as well for engineering, and so there was always kind of an expectation that I would go to a similarly ranked school. I mean, the difficult part was mostly like bureaucratic crap, but that's something that you're really going to get at any educational institution in my experience. But I think that the hardest part of going to an Ivy League school, for me at least, was the hardest part of going to college, which was just getting used to going to college and kind of figuring out like, how do you actually study? What do I want to major in? What kind of research do I want to do? Just those kind of like forward-looking, like, how can I do well here? And how do I like make friends? And how do I figure out what I want to do when I'm done here? And then how do I set myself up for that? Have you considered doing reviews on books that cover AI? It could make for an interesting video or two. Yeah, I have. There are a lot of really interesting books on AI and computer science in general. The main reason why I haven't done it is time. As you can see, I'm wearing my gym clothes because I'm going to go to the gym after this. That way I can then go back to working because it's finals. So I'm hoping that over the summer I'm going to have more time to do stuff like that. If there are any particular books that you guys want to hear my thoughts on, definitely let me know in the comments. I was thinking about doing kind of a speed round video for a lot of the books that I've read, things like Hello World, that are kind of the top common AI books that people want to hear about or want to read. But if there's any other books that you want to hear about, I'm personally very into science fiction, so I'm happy to read anything that's like AI science fiction too. Awesome, so that was all of the questions that you guys had. I hope I answered them well. If you have any other questions, again, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, if you want to see more Q&A videos, you can let me know by subscribing to my channel and smashing that like button. You can, as always, find me on Twitter and also Instagram, but like only if you want to see me go to the gym. And otherwise, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.